To Zelda Speedruns. Today we're proud to bring you another A Link to the Past All Dungeons Restricted Major Glitches tournament match. It's Dao versus Azder Group I, and I am joined on commentary today by M. Kozler and Tracy M. And how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic.
And I'm
doing well.
And I'm going to set them off, so I know you'll have the cutscene to explain a few things about restricted major glitches and other things that we should see tonight. So thank you very much.
Hello. Once again, I'm M. Kosler, joined by Tracy. We are doing some All Dungeons Restricted Major Glitches for Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. It's a speedrun race for our All Dungeons tournament. We got two contestants coming in from Group I, Dao and Azder. Dao is the number 1 seed, Azder the number 2 seed. Dao looks to already have secured his spot in the bracket stage, but looking to hopefully get a better seeding, while Azder, this is his first played match. He got a def win because of a drop, but looking to pull off an upset and secure his spot in the brackets. How you doing today, Tracy?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to this match. Very interesting match. It is the 1 and the 2 seed, as you said. One thing about these runners that, pretty interesting. So they both run what is the new low percent category, as you're having taken that world record from Dao several months ago with a 133.21 versus a 133.49 for Dao. So kind of an interesting competition that they end up matched together in groups.
Yeah, that low percent category, it's pretty darn tough when having to deal with those heart deletions and having to basically run through the entire game with 3 hearts. Eventually, at some point, you get into everything one-shots you territory. So both of these runners clearly have some high execution, are able to play on their toes, and we're hopefully going to see that shine in this match tonight.
And of course, we do start out just like pretty much any other vanilla category with just like an NMG category where we do have to rescue Zelda. So we do have to go through the same section of the dungeon. We're not going to hit the actual glitches that we're going to use for a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty darn similar to what you're going to see in basically every category. Just some minor movement tech, some pumps here, some double spins there. Have one little mini boss, I guess you could call it, in the ball and chain guard about halfway through. But really, this is just sort of a preamble that we basically have to do in our categories. This is a RMG, Restricted Major Glitches category. We have tons of different glitches that we can do in this game that can really break the game wide open, allow us to walk right to the end of the game from the very beginning. But so in order to sort of preserve some semblance of playing the game as the developer intended, at least inside the dungeons, we created this Restricted Major Glitches category. It's kind of sort of a medium point between no major glitches and full-on unrestricted.
And to your point, what I like about this category is I think it really is a nice mix of the major glitches, but it is an all dungeons category, so we still have to beat all the dungeons. Just if you're used to NMG, the order is a little bit goofy, so hang on to your hats. We have we do still have to go to Eastern first, but then that's where things start changing.
Yeah, and with all that. One of the things that we have to deal with in pretty much all categories that don't allow the most broken of glitches is the rain outside. It really makes things weird. A lot of the game state stuff that would normally be working doesn't quite work that well during the rain. So really the best way that we can get rid of that rain state is just rescuing Zelda. So might as well just do it like when everyone else does it. We could technically go to Eastern first and clear Eastern out if we wanted to be fancy, but it ends up losing time in the end. So because we have to deal with Zelda asking us every however long, "Hey, you gonna come over and rescue me?" So better to just get her out of the way.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah, I actually didn't know about that. You could do Eastern first. It's actually pretty cool. So it's but yeah, I mean the route is pretty well optimized. Duck was telling me the last time I commed, pretty much hasn't really changed in a really long time. So probably not going to see too many changes of the route in terms of the dungeons. There's some very minor changes that have actually come up recently, but those are specific new glitches that have been found within the last couple months that just simply changed a little bit of the dungeon routing, the internal dungeon routing, I should say.
Right. In this game, there's the NMG category, the any percent NMG no save and quit category is probably our most optimized, and there really isn't much. It moves at a much more glacial pace. All dungeons, however, uh, we kind of have the route down. Obviously, that changes as we find new stuff. It's a 30-year-old game, but we're still finding new stuff. Like Tracy said, within the past few months, we've actually had the discovery of 2 newer glitches. But even with that, just in the course of this tournament happening, we've found a lot of our runners, especially like Zero Rush, has found a lot of little minor movement optimizations and different things that we can do in the run. So it's pretty polished, but there's still a lot of experimentation that people are doing just within the course of this tournament.
Which is a really cool part of this whole thing, just to see all the little changes that are going on, and really it's kind of an exciting time to be a fan of this game as we see all these new things coming up um, that affect the various categories. And I come from a bit of a randomizer background, affects those as well. So
Absolutely.
definitely nice to see.
Seeing a hot
And
550 time coming from Dow in that escape. We are seeing a save and quit here. Unlike our NMG categories, we're actually or most of our NMG categories, we're actually allowed to do save and quits. A lot of the glitches that we do in this category, if we didn't have save and quit and we screwed them up, that'd just basically be game over. So we basically allow save and quit, and because of that, we can use that to sort of shortcut around the dungeon. Looks like we are seeing Dow doing the citrus clip while azder is not. We'll see if this pays off for Dow. Could save him. Ooh, upwards teleport for Dow. Let's see if he can save it on a second try. Looks like he got it on the second try. Should be able to give a good indication on the time difference between both of these routes.
yeah, Asher hasn't quite gotten that into his run yet, so it is a little bit. He is a couple rooms behind, so definitely good that Dow is able to do that for himself. Gives him a bit of a lead.
Got a question in chat about what exactly citrus is. It's basically we're going to be doing a lot of clips into slopes at throughout this game, but most of them we're going to be using boots to do it, but we don't actually have the boots yet. We can't actually get the boots yet until we're actually finished with this dungeon, and it's just a simple version of doing a bootsless clip into one of those slopes. I'm not going to bore you with the details of all the different spots. If you're looking to learn the category, there's actually a fantastic All Dungeons tutorial that was made in anticipation for this category. You should be able to just type in !80tut and it should pop up if Helposaur is in chat. But yeah.
Yeah, I've looked through some of that document, and there's a lot of really esoteric and weird stuff going on in there. And it's a lot of it's not particularly intuitive in terms of what inputs. You have to remember exact inputs at exact times. And that's to your point earlier about saving and quitting, and that's where you can get in trouble. Some of those inputs, if you don't quite get them right, they just soft lock you right there, and you have to go back to the previous save.
Are seeing Dow do a nice Eastern Palace big key damage boost. Normally in this part of the dungeon, we would have to kill all the enemies in this room before we can make it before those anti-fairies guarding that pot that has the floor switch underneath it move out of the way. But just using some iframes off of damage boosting off of one of those popos, we can just make it all the way right in and hit that switch. See that in basically every category that comes into Eastern Palace.
Yeah, and you also have seen both runners picked up those 2 arrow pots. There are one of the parts of the routing in here is making sure you know where to get your arrow pots, where to get your bomb pots, to pick that stuff up. Ammo management is pretty important here.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately,
About
one
to make.
difference is go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but rupee management not nearly as big a deal. There's a couple of big 300s we'll pick up, and they'll take us through the rest of the run.
Yeah, and we don't even have to worry about paying off Kiki the monkey to get into pod, as we'll be able to explain pretty darn soon right after we're done with this dungeon. Just going to see both of our runners attempt the Eastern Palace quick kill. Ooh, Dao taking a poke. Need to be pretty careful with where he stands. Any one of these Armos Knights hit him, he's going to be right back to the beginning of the dungeon. Deciding to take it pretty darn slow. Both azder and Dao having issues with Armos Knights, but both of them not panicking and surviving the fight.
Yeah, it is a little bit different because in an NMG category, you're going to have one more heart coming into this. You're typically going to pick up the Sank heart. These runners not going to pick up the Sank heart this time. They're going to pick it up in just a second on a save and quit. One, because it fills up. It's a free health refill if you need it, and 2, because it's just a little bit faster just to pick it up from there than from when you're rescuing Zelda.
Right, because you'd rather just save and quit as soon as you have the opportunity. Are going to see both of our runners talk to Sahasrara and break open the back of this hut to pick up some bombs. And this is where we already saw a major glitch coming from Dao to get into Eastern Palace, but this is where we're going to see. Ooh, went for a chest turn, missed the chest turn. Here we're going to see a flurry of major glitches, one after the other. We're going to first start by doing a major glitch to get onto Death Mountain. We don't actually have the power gloves to lift the rock that would normally be blocking our way into the Death Mountain cave entrance. What we're going to do instead is do a little clip into the slope here, do a little spin speed clip, do a couple movements around while using this broken camera, and that's going to let us land right next to that cave, and we can walk right in without having to have that power glove.
Yeah, and this will allow us to do quite a few things. The next dungeon we're going to do, spoilers, is Pod. Even though we don't have a Moon Pearl, we don't have, main thing, we don't have gloves, we don't have all sorts of things we don't have. Ag is not killed, but this is the most optimal route. The big thing here is that we want that hammer before going into Tower of Hera rather than after. You could switch it the other way, but Moldorm with hammer is much easier than Moldorm with fighter sword. Much easier and much quicker.
I don't believe either of our runners will be going for silvers, though I'm not sure. This is the 1 versus 2 match, so I imagine both of our runners will be trying to do the run as fast as possible. We'll be able to tell based on what Dao does here. He decides to do a Kiki Yeet. This indicates that he's going to be heading straight for Pod. Same with azder. Kiki Yeet. Both this DMA and the Kiki Yeet are 2 fairly new discoveries for this category. Additionally, we're seeing Dao and azder right here do a bomb clip into this slope, and then a quick little movement. Dao having a little bit of trouble doing some upward
those
teleports.
mini Moldorbs will just troll you to death in that area.
Absolutely. Dao, down to his last bomb, has really got one more attempt at this. Let's see, gets it that time. How that works, all of the underworld map is on a 2D plane, and it's all connected to each other, whether they're in different dungeons or not. And that cave with those many Moldorms happens to be right next to a room in Palace of Darkness. So if we can somehow do a downward teleport to hit the screen transition, there's always a screen transition at the edge of any of these rooms, and if we can hit that screen transition with that downward teleport, we can actually transition right into a room in Palace of Darkness. We start out in a cave state, which basically gives us essentially infinite keys, and so we use one of those infinite keys to open up one of the doors in pod before we go out, reset the dungeon so that we're actually in a non-cave state version of it, and then go on our merry way.
Yeah, it's nice that we get to do that. It changes the routing a little bit compared to NMG to not have that one extra key that you don't have to pick up. You get that free door opening there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get to skip the key in the dark maze after the hammer jump that we're about to see Azder pull off relatively soon.
Yep, and Azure was able to take a bit of a lead there, but you know those clips, you know, if you don't, I mean that's the big thing with this category. You know, you see NMG races, you're not going to be as many upsets in this category. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, little
Absolutely.
things and big things. So you never know. You really can't just look at the PBs and say, hey. Dow has the better PB, he's going to win. That's just not the case, and you know, it could have quite a difference of PBs, and still, if something goes wrong, or even just a bunch of little things go wrong, you know, you can have an upset pretty easily here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of points in this category where you can soft lock, you can, or heaven forbid, hard lock and lose entire dungeons of progress. Hopefully, none of our runners hit that, but that can wildly swing a race, and like you said, it's allows other runners who, on paper, might be outclassed, be able to still finish the race ahead of their opponent.
Yeah, and the main point being here, you know, Azure with that bit of a lead, it's way too early to tell, you know, exactly how it's going to go. You know, some categories you're already, 30 seconds ahead, and you're probably going to be about 30 seconds ahead pretty much the entire time. That's just not the case here.
Mm-hmm. Seeing a little bit of a difference in philosophy here, Azder deciding to stop in the Mimic's room and pick up some extra arrows, possibly as a safety for the upcoming Helmasaur fight. Dow going in with entirely an empty quiver. So if Dow feels like that he runs into trouble, he doesn't have the opportunity to switch to the bow and arrow and finish off Helmasaur with some bow shots. The Helma fight is probably the scariest fight of this category.
Oh, for sure. You know, 5 hearts, hammer, green mail. This is a nasty fight. You can take 3 hits before you die.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
2 hits and then you die.
Yeah,
on
the third hit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you could take 2 hits and still survive. You don't have a master sword, so you have to either use the hammer, the bow, or sword spins to actually damage him at this point where Azur's at right now.
Right.
And see, Azure just took a hit. So.
A fireball in a really awkward position.
He's going to use some mini buffering to get around that fireball. Yeah,
the fireball and the swing ends up still getting hit. That was ridiculous. And sniped from off screen. Unfortunate. I had no idea where that fireball was coming from, and obviously neither did Azder. But yeah, just like we were saying, a lot of things can happen in this particular category, and yeah, Dow takes the lead.
And of course, the hallmark of the vanilla runs of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past is the amount of text that we have. Yeah, just have to mash through it.
53 seconds of listening to this maiden tell you all about things that you don't really care about.
And even if you did care about, because it's the first time through, it's the same stuff through each
Mhm.
maiden. So,
Yep.
like, didn't you just tell me this before? Didn't the last maiden just tell me this? Azur's gonna go ahead and go back into his Helma fight.
Mhm.
You notice he did not. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised he must be stocking up arrows for something later on because I've seen him run this. He usually does just use the hammer. So we'll see if he decides to do anything different here.
In the meantime, we're seeing Dao. The second dungeon, or the next dungeon that we do along the way, is Tower of Hera. So once we leave Palace of Darkness, we just immediately save and quit and go back to that old man cave that we got earlier, and make our way to Tower of Hera. That clip that we just saw Dao do, we're going to be seeing that several more times in the run. It's the most often clip that we're going to be seeing in this run, because a lot of the stuff that we have to do is up on top of Death Mountain. Azder again having some unfortunate luck with these fireballs, but being able to handle it much better this
That was
time.
much better.
Gets a nice second try kill.
And now he'll have to wait through his text.
Mm-hmm. In the meantime, Dao is currently waiting through his tower room. Please, if some random runner who has some secret tech to get us by this tower room without involving some major glitches comes on by, it would be fantastic and would make quite a number of categories much nicer.
Well, there is a new glitch that allows you to use the hook shot to skip that whole area. But even though you can actually get over, and we're going to see, I don't want to spoil too much. We're going to see a clip into the swamp to get that hook shot. Can't really do it right now because we don't have a key and we don't have flippers. So we'll just have to see that later.
Yeah. Other thing, misslotting with Hookshot and Ganon Pot aren't allowed in. Well, Ganon Pot might be allowed in this, but we don't have the Hookshot yet, and any sort of misslotting is restricted from this category. Are seeing a pretty nice Hera Bomb jump, get our Moon Pearl, allow us to do a little more traversal in the Dark World without having to be a bunny.
Yeah,
and on our way to the Moldorm fight.
Interesting that Dao set that up without doing a running dash. It's a little more forgiving. I think it's 6 pixels you have for the Y coordinate as opposed to 2 with the way he set it up, but very nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we get the hammer.
Yeah, absolutely. The Moldorm fight normally takes 5 hits with the fighter sword. With the hammer, it's only going to take 3 hits. And given that we're doing 2 hits at a time, usually on the 5th hit, Moldorm goes into an enrage phase. But because we skip over the 5th hit and go right to the 6th hit, we skip that entire enrage phase.
And as you're going through his tile room.
Mm-hmm. Down to 1.5 hearts. We might see Azder decide to hit the switch to get some additional heart refills right before the Moldorm fight. In the meantime, we're seeing Dao do Death Mountain a decent. Even though we got that Moon Pearl, we don't have any of the other necessary gear to use any of the portals that are on the in the base of Dark World. The only portal we have is that one that was open, that's always open on Death Mountain. So you'd think that we'd have no way to get around in the Dark World, but just a little spin, speed clip into the slope, followed by a bonk, and then moving into the screen transition, we just do a little bit of an auto walk and make our way down onto the base of the Dark World.
Yeah, and we're going to do Thieves Town now, which is super important because we don't have gloves yet. So we have no lifting power, and we're just going to go straight to mitts by going into Thieves Town. So we can, so we'll never have to get gloves, which is really nice.
It's very, very nice. In fact, in the vanilla game, unlike in randomizers, the items aren't progression, and they would actually downgrade you. So if for some reason, not that any of our runners will do this because it's nowhere near the route, if for some reason one of our runners decided to pick up the power gloves when they go into Desert Palace, they would then lose their Titan's Mitts and be unable to pick up any of the Dark Rocks. Not necessarily game ending, as long as our runners do Ice Palace Mirror Wrap, but just a little factoid. Azder at half a heart, but does make it through the Moldorm fight.
All right, and finishing that up, and we have these crickets in this Thieves Town area are just nasty.
Yeah,
Too hard
Dow
to
just
damage.
taking a smack from him. Usually with the Master Sword, it's got a little bit of a longer length, and we can deal with them in just 2 swings. But with the Fighter Sword, for whatever reason, we end up getting hit by them far more often in this particular category. So yeah, they can be super annoying.
Yeah, and really nice because we're going to skip right over Master Sword for this category, which is really nice because, I mean, if the order if you do the dungeons, you kind of have to. But also not having to go ahead and pull that pedestal is very nice.
Mm-hmm. Dow getting through that through Musketeer room. I don't know how you really describe that room. Normally we would have gloves to pick up that rock, but we don't. Luckily, the game allowed us to kill all the enemies in that room and then go around in order to get
really
through there. Otherwise, we'd be...
I don't understand why they put the block there in the first place. They let you just...
I've heard some people theorize that those large rocks were supposed to only be pickable. You could only pick them up with the Titan's Mitts, but they just didn't do it. That's just a working theory. I don't know whether that's actually true, but it makes sense. You know, you would get the Titan's Mitts in this dungeon, and it will allow you to come on back.
Okay, and the blind fight going to be much like you've always seen. The same script. Nothing really changed here. The sword's just a little bit shorter, but that doesn't really affect things very much here.
Mm-hmm. Dow getting through the first 2 phases relatively easily, and finishing off the blind fight.
Yeah, very nice, very clean.
Azder, in the meantime, having to deal with the crickets himself. Let's see if he takes a smack like Dow did on the way out of this room. Luckily, did not have the same positioning of that cricket right by the door frame, so pretty easy and clean for Azder. Meantime, coming up on our next segment, Skullwoods, probably the most vanilla segment, the most similar to the NMG route. We're basically doing everything exactly how we would in the NMG Skullwood segment, except for one minor but very important difference. We need to go pick up the Book of Medora from the Light World Library. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to get the Ether Medallion and wouldn't be able to clear Misery Mire.
And you might say, don't we need the book for desert? Well, no, not in this category. We don't.
Yeah.
So literally, we were picking up the book for one thing and one thing only. You need to get that ether so we can get into Misery Mire. That could be another quite difference maker in this. Oh,
Azder taking a unfortunate hit while escaping with the maiden, gonna have to go back down all the way to the prison there. Thieves Town in this category, it's essentially, if I remember correctly, it's essentially as if you're fighting, you're in here with sync card. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's essentially if you're in here with sync card, I believe. And so, no, without sync card. It's essentially in here without sync card. And again, with the little fighter sword, can take a lot of hits, and or can much more easily get hit by the enemies, and the dungeon becomes much more deadly.
Yep, and we see on Dao's side picking up that tempered sword, skips right from fighter sword to tempered. This game doesn't actually look to see what kind of sword you have at that point; just gives you the tempered sword. You can actually go there with no sword, although that's actually getting there with no sword might be a little bit difficult. Probably would require more glitches than we use here. That tempered sword just make we do Thieves Town when we do it, both here and in the NMG run, so that we have that tempered sword for the Mothula fight. Just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, we're a lot of our routing is predicated on trying to get to that temper sword as fast as possible. So we went and got the hammer, we went and got the Titan's mitts, and we immediately go and get the tempered sword as soon as possible.
And
so our next fin snatch coming out from Dao.
Yeah, you also notice that Dao stopped and picked up those 300 rupees pickups in the village of Outcasts. Very important because we need that money for flippers. And you'll also notice he doesn't quite have 600 because a lot of people forget that the tempered sword actually costs 10 rupees. Which I think is kind of a steal. So
yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're going straight from fighter to tempered. I mean, come on. Does he like add on material? That's a way different looking sword.
Okay, as you're in his blind fight, so far staying on script very well.
Just one more hit, and we're good to go. In the meantime, Dao did a very nice mummy statue room, the second hardest room in the game. Hardest one in this particular category, because the actual hardest room we don't actually see in the ball and chain room in Turtle Rock. We'll talk a little bit more about why we don't see it as we get closer to that dungeon.
Yeah, the Turtle Rock routing is kind of, I think, one of the more fun parts of the run, since we do get to skip a lot of stuff and do some crazy stuff just to get in there in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Skipped over it a little bit when we were discussing Azder's unfortunate demise in Thieves Town. But we did see that Dao went and picked up the Book of Medora. It looked like he chose not to do another one of the newer techs that was discovered during the run-up for this tournament. The Frog Door glitch saves really only about like 20 frames or so, compared to the double quick warp that Dao went. There is a minor, very minor, and all preventable opportunity to hard lock your game doing the frog door glitch. And Dao, I imagine Dao, seeing if he has Azder's run open, seeing that he's ahead, and would rather not provide opportunities for Azder to catch back up.
As you're going to pick up his Book of Medora while Dao gets into his moth fight.
Moth, one of the more annoying fights, as we're seeing from Dao, does clean it up pretty darn well in the end.
And the real hard part about Mothula is those spikes, because one, they just get in your way, and two, the way the programmers set this up, where thinks if Moth's taking a spike hit at the same time as taking your hit, it doesn't count, which is very, very annoying.
Yeah, very rude and annoying. And usually enemies take, I guess they'd call it level 4 or class 4 damage, but because they didn't want to make Mothula just incredibly easy by ricocheting off your sword into the spikes, they moved it on down to nullify that damage, and yeah, like you said, can be quite annoying to deal with.
And fun fact, if you ever anyone that might have tried to play this game and get all your swords before actually killing the bosses would have been very disappointed in trying to use that gold sword on Mothula, because it doesn't actually take damage to that for that exact reason.
Yeah, you can do some pokes.
Yeah, you can do pokes
to deal with it. Yeah, but much
fact,
better to just
when I played this game
stick
the
with the
first time,
tinted sword.
yeah,
Oh,
when I played
sorry,
this
go
game the
ahead.
first time, yeah, I thought you had to use fire rod, so I didn't
Oh
even try
yeah,
using
yeah,
the sword. Like, hey, you got the fire rod in the dungeon. Shouldn't you be using that to beat the boss? And here we see
yeah.
that clip into Hera again.
Dao getting absolutely trolled by the one and only Katy Perry.
Yeah, we have to do a little bit of overworld cleanup because we have to pick up this ether medallion. Then have to go and clip over to get to the Zora area to get those flippers. We're gonna want to get
Get to
those
the
now.
Zora area, but we're on Death Mountain. How are we going to do
Yeah,
that?
I don't know. You might have to explain it a little bit.
So very similar to what happens with the underworld map. The overworld map is also just a 2D plane. Ooh, Dao getting completely trolled by these dead rocks. Going to have to go reset them. Very similar to the underworld map, the overworld map is just another 2D plane. And if we can hit the screen transition right here, Dao getting completely trolled by these dead rocks.
Dead rocks are the worst.
You can, when you hit the screen transition, that'll put you right next to Zora's domain, and at which point you can just walk right on in.
Kind of an interesting looking Zora's domain, but it still works. You'll still get your flippers.
The game had loaded in the tile set for Death Mountain when we save and quit in after leaving Skull Woods, and because we did a non-traditional screen transition, the tile set wasn't ever set to the correct one. So it's just the game's doing its best. Okay, it's just working with what it's got, and this is what we end up with. Do not adjust your TV screen. This is how the game is rendering it out.
Yeah, and gets those flippers, saves and quits, and we're gonna see what I find. We're gonna get into a desert, but we're gonna do the entire south set of dungeons all in a row. We need those flippers right then and there. Otherwise, there are a couple tricks that just wouldn't end up making sense. But first, we're gonna clip over into the desert area, into the mire area, in order to get to desert.
Right. We usually call this trick Fluteless Mire because in this particular category, we never actually pick up the flute, and normally the flute is the only way that we can get into Mire. But as we've seen quite a number of times, this game, things that you normally are not allowed to do are merely suggestions. We just take a little clip on this little slope here, and Dao setting up nicely here. Get up onto the top of the ridge there, and we're suddenly in Misery Mire. The game, I assume it's very similar to what happened with Zora's Domain. It's supposed to be raining whenever you're in Misery Mire, but because we went through a non-traditional entrance, it loads in some weird textures and causes this super flashy thing to appear on screen.
And as you're getting through his moth fight, so he'll go and do his little overall cleanup, get his ether and his flippers. Well, Dao doing the front part of desert because we unfortunately still need to get a big key here. So the nice thing is that he has that mirror out all ready to go. Once he picks up that big key, he can mirror back to the side area and then go to the back area to fight Landmolus.
Yep. I ever played a rando, was probably pretty familiar with doing the dungeon like this. Having that mirror just means we don't have to do any backtracking once we pick this thing up. And boom, right back to, I guess you could call it the middle of, maybe the 2/3 point of Desert Palace.
And one of the nice things about doing desert, and we're, as we said before, not picking up those gloves. Gonna go ahead and which is nice. You don't have to worry about routing that big chest into your route. And the other nice thing here is that fire rod is going to give us a very nice way to kill the Landmolus, as opposed to in NMG, where you're probably going to use your bow, or in a casual run where you'd probably be using your fighter sword.
Yeah, a boss that is in the NMG route, probably 99% agreement, the hardest boss in the game, suddenly becomes very, very trivial when you have Tempered Sword and the Fire Rod. Dao taking a little bit of abuse from this Igor, but Landmola is not really a a boss that you should worry too much about dying against. Did have to use an extra shot, but get a very friendly pattern from the third land mola that allowed him to double swipe at it and save the one cycle.
Yeah, very nicely done. Normally you want to hit that last one with 2 fire rod shots, but he didn't quite have enough magic to finish him off there. So did have to use that extra bit of swords and still finished off very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And now
And
we're
with
back and Misery Mire.
Yep. Because we entered into the Dark World, it's very easy for us to just immediately traverse on to Misery Mire and set this entrance open.
Yeah. And we're going to get to what I think is, I don't know, I hear it's one of the more difficult parts of the run, but it's actually my favorite part of the run, as we're going to get our hook shot here. How are we going to get a hook shot by going into Misery Mire?
It's pretty wild. We actually traverse through 2 different dungeons to get to our hookshot. One just entirely an intermediary pit stop along our way. First, we do have to do a little bit of work to get ourselves set up for this traversal. We do need to pick up the Misery Mire big key and an extra small key. From my understanding, the way that Link to the Past handles keys is you sort of have a dungeon ID, and as well as certain big keys for dungeons sort of masking over one or the other. And so the Misery Mire big key can work in Swamp Palace, and the small keys that we pick up in Misery Mire can work in basically any dungeon. So by picking up this extra key, after we go pick up this big key, we're going to do a big old loop back around, clip from Misery Mire into the Tower of Hera, and then clip from the Tower of Hera into Swamp Palace and make our way to pick up our hookshot. Using the same principles and concept that we've talked about before with the Kiki skip and getting into Zora's domain, all just happen to be that these dungeons are arranged in such a way that this intermediary trip between Tower of Hera allows us to sort of traverse from one dungeon from Misery Mire all the way over to Swamp Palace.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. The nice thing about Misery Mire, and one of the reasons why we do it at this point, is Misery Mire has a whole bunch of extra keys that you just don't need.
Right.
Whereas when we were in Hera earlier, Hera has exactly 1 key, and we need it to get to that basement in order to get the big key there. So even if we were to find a way to make it faster to get the flippers early, getting that hook shot from Hera the first time really isn't practical because we just don't have an extra key to do it with.
Mm-hmm. So we see here, this is the room that we're going to be doing our first set of clips. It's a bomb clip. I should mention a little bit about bomb clips. Before, probably about 2 years ago now, maybe even 3, this category was much more difficult because we didn't have these actual bomb clips. So all these clips that we're going to see Dao do, especially in this little traversal section, had to be done with 1 frame clips using some sort of buffer like your sword or a dash or the start of select menus. And really only a few runners were able to do them well enough and consistently enough to put together really competitive times. But with discovery of bomb clips, it really opened up this category to a lot more runners to be able to participate and compete for world records.
And you'll notice that Dao just picked up his hookshot Emiras and by magic back in Misery Mire.
Mm-hmm. He never actually left Misery Mire to reset that mirror position. So whenever he decides to mirror,
as far as the game is concerned, he's never left. So he's going to be right back here at the beginning, and will now go get his Cane of Samaria and then make his way to Vitreous.
Yeah, It can be a little bit of a hiccup or a troll. A lot of times you're like, all right, I got my hook shot. Let's just go and beat Viddy. But nope, you do have to take this little detour to go pick up the Cane of Samaria in order to get on by.
That one block.
Yep.
You
That
have
single
to use
block.
it on. There you go. Yeah, someone needs to find a way to just keep that block down without a cane.
Mm-hmm. We are probably going to be seeing Dao do the spooky action glitch version for all dungeons. Not going to go into the very specific details of spooky action, but if you've ever played a randomizer or done an RMG run within the past year and a half, 2 years, you've probably seen something similar to this. Here, because we don't have the flute, we can't use the bird to set everything up. So what you saw Dao do there was throw the block in, place a block, and then throw that block into the void near the bridge to get into the basement, and that's going to allow us to set up for the spooky action glitch in the center room. We don't have to worry about this first room because we never actually hit the switch at the earlier points in the dungeon. Here you see Dao setting up, going to do a fire rod dash, hit that sprite of the anti-fairy while it was near the bottom, and then dashing up, shifts the camera up so that the splash of the fire rod hits the unseen switch in the other room, and like magic, we can get on through that room without having to blow up the floor or blow up the wall.
And
nice cleanup.
Yep. Yeah, very similar to NMG fight. Actually, I think that is the NMG fight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because you have that tempered sword and something, a few arrows. Some runners, this is one of the places where some runners, if they pick up those silvers, will use the silvers. Not necessarily all of them will. Does make the fight faster. Would mean you have to replace those arrows later.
I did notice azder actually had hit the switch probably in just muscle memory for NMG, so he's going to actually run into a little bit of trouble when he decides to do that spooky action room a little bit later on in the dungeon.
When he mirrors, don't the blocks all reset?
You know what? I don't know. You might be right.
All right. Meantime, we got into Misery Mire by a clip. Now we have to get out of Misery Mire by a clip. We don't have to. We could save and quit. But this is a little bit faster if you can do it well.
Yeah, looks like there's some agreement in chat that yes, he won't get trolled, but it was a minor time waste to hit the switch. So yeah, at least he won't get trolled.
Okay, as you're getting his clip into Swamp Palace. The other nice thing about this is when Dao gets into Swamp Palace and azder later on, that switch that azder just did to flood this room will already been flipped. So it actually makes it even faster when you actually get in here. And you don't have to go get the hook shot because you've already got it. So it makes this a very fast dungeon.
Yep, just 2 little swims, and then you can hook and steal the key at the very beginning, and just make your way to the back of the dungeon, where we're probably going to see one of the 2 newest clips for restricted major glitches in the diver down clip. Normally we would have to push a statue in order to Dao forgot the key. I'm going to make his way back on up. Normally we have to push a different statue in order to open a specific door, and push another lever to drain some of the water. But with a little bit of a clip through this very small railing, we're actually going to bypass all of that nonsense. Really the only thing that would actually make it so that we accidentally swim, there are about 4 or so small tiles right at the base of that set of stairs that would actually make us start to swim. But because we clip through that railing, we skip on by those small tiles, those small deep water tiles, I guess you can call them. And
it turns out that only of those tiles have actual water. So if you go jump in where those tiles are, you're going to be swimming. And if you manage to find a way, in this case by clipping, to jump in when those tiles aren't, then you're just walking on the water. And you could actually pick up those pots and open those chests if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Azder making their way to the spooky action glitch in Misery Mire. Meanwhile, Dao, just loses the one cycle there. Azder nailing the spooky action.
It was still going to be a very nice and quick Argus fight here from Dao.
Mm-hmm. You might have seen in other runs where runners switch to the fire rod in order to do a one cycle phase 2. But in this particular category, we actually want to stick with the hookshot for the next segment. So it's actually a waste of time to switch off the hookshot, do the one cycle phase 2, and then switch back. Basically, we lose all the time that we would have gained from the fire rod kill.
And as you're finishing up Viddy very nicely, and he'll start making his way over to Swamp proper, I guess we could call it.
Mm-hmm. Currently, both of our runners in Crystal cutscenes. Just taking a look at our runners' times. Both of our runners doing okay. I would imagine that they're probably outside of Dao's gold escape for this particular race. Both could probably be improving compared to their level, but there's still plenty of run to go. We are seeing Dao attempting the Ice Palace mirror wrap. Nails it. That is probably the last major chance for a hard lock. Had Dao walked up a little too much in the after he did the first set of mirror wrap, he would have ended up hard locking and then having to reset all of his progress all the way back to when he went to Link's house after picking up the flippers. Luckily, he did not, and maintains his lead.
So now we're going to see the next of the newer glitches that we use, the so-called icebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
This block is going to, and he does it so quickly, blink and you miss it. Can allow him to clip right through that rail. Which is really nice time save. It actually, I mean, you could, and none of these runners are going to do it. I doubt we'll see it in the tournament. But if for a newer runner, being able to do that would allow you pretty much a free shot at the big key, and you could just pick up the blue mail if you want that extra safety.
We actually have seen at least one runner do go and get the blue mail in this tournament, so it is not out of the question for somebody to go and get the blue mail in one of these races. It's not a bad safety. Loses only about 7 to 8 seconds, I think people have figured out. And if you were, say, talking to the old man to get the heart refill for both TR and GT, that probably loses you more time than it would to just get the blue mail. Trade-offs on each of those different things, but yeah, not completely out of the question.
And we're going to drop right into Cold Stare. So Ice Palace, which, you know, when you play this game casually, one of the longest dungeons, and, you know, with a huge puzzle that you have to solve, and, you know, which switches to hit when and how to reroute around. Nope, we just figure out we just do that clip, even saving time over the old bomb jump. Just makes it really short and easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, blink of an eye and we're already done. Pretty good fight, pretty good double poke, cold stare. There are about 3 different methods that most people use in this 6/, single poke, and double poke. One of the puffballs did manage to make it away, but no panic coming from Dao. Tracked it down and finished it off with 2 additional swipes. Meanwhile, we're seeing Azder make his way into the Argus fight. Gonna see if we're going for the 0 cycle. Nope, just the tried and true, safe 1 cycle. Should be able to clean up all these puffs pretty darn easily before we get a single move.
All right, one more piece of business we have before we can go up and do Turtle Rock. Have to get that ice rod.
Mm-hmm.
Have
to get that ice rod. Have to do the swim. Yep.
Very odd that I always find it odd that the game gives you this ice rod super, super early, and you only need it for one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we don't, unless you can read Japanese, you wouldn't be able to see it in here. But in English, Sahasrara is actually the one who tells you where the ice rod is, just as he's giving you the boots. And it's like, okay, thanks for that info.
What do I do with this? Oh yeah, you'll
10, 11 dungeons from now. After getting the ice rod, though, we're back to our trusty Hera clip. Going to enter Hera because we do need to have the camera reset. And we're actually going to do another mirror wrap to get into TR. This mirror wrap is actually going to set us up so that we get to the very back of Turtle Rock, right next to the laser bridge. And that's going to allow us to go through that Turtle Rock backwards. So we talked about before the interesting routing as we go through Turtle Rock. Nice pointing out we have sync mirror wraps. Azder on the first one, Dao on the second one.
Yeah, I'm going to point out that Azure just recently added that mirror wrap to his run, so good to see him get it in a race situation.
Yeah, it pulled it off remarkably well. One of the scarier things in the run, as I mentioned before. But yeah, coming through TR backwards, we get to skip over the hardest room in the game and make what is normally one of the scariest dungeons a lot easier. Most of our runners who are really competing for high-end times are not talking to the old man before they enter in TR, though you can certainly, if you're just trying out this category or just want to get a little bit of safety, talk to the old man, come into here with a full set of hearts, and make this dungeon pretty darn trivial. But even with the half hearts from the save and quit, there's not really much that can deal much damage to you. Those pokies in that last room and in this upcoming room, plus some of the lasers that we're going to be seeing, are really our only significant enemies in this dungeon. Azder currently making his way to his cold stare fight. We'll see how he deals.
And Dao will shortly be into his Trinex fight, where he will make very good use of that ice rod.
Uh-huh. Looking for a 6 slash from Azder.
There we go. Got him. Kept him in the corner very nicely. One almost got away, but he managed to finish him off. And that's cold stare for Azder. And Dao about to fight Trinex.
Gonna see some backdoor Trinex. We'll see if we're gonna see some poke dash strats.
Oh, didn't quite get that last slash in on the firehead. At least with the firehead, he's not gonna leave any bits of ice on the floor.
Did have to deal with a second lunge of the center head, but managed to definitely avoid the center head, and all it's going to take is a double spin plus a single slash. Yeah, I believe Duck correctly pointing out that Dao was attempting to go for the poke dash strat, but ended up missing just a little bit.
All right, Azure gonna go pick up his ice rod, and Dao gonna go to GT. But we're not just gonna go to GT the way you might be used to.
Hmm.
Can't quite, because we didn't actually open the dungeon the proper way. The game doesn't really like that, so we'll have
Hmm.
to save and quit and get in there another way.
We actually can just mirror once we land out here, but you would then mirror,
Slow.
do the peg puzzle, go back through the portal, then go to Ganon's Tower,
Yeah,
watch the
that's slow.
cutscene to open Ganon's Tower. All of that ends up making it actually take I don't know about way longer, but take longer than what we're going to see Dao do instead.
All right. Meanwhile, Azure, having finished up his ice palace, is going to go ahead and do his clips over to Turtle Rock.
Mm-hmm. Not before leaving an arrow for the homies in the ledge there. Did see Dao decide to take a little bit of safety and talk to the old man before attempting this clip. Gonna mean GT is much, much closer to the NMG route.
Yeah, and we're never even going to see the crystal cutscene here. So the only real reason we have to get all the crystals is because this is all dungeons. So all dungeons means, yeah, we have to do all the dungeons. So
Mm-hmm.
going to head into GT. And of course, we know where the big key is, so we don't have to worry about that. We just go ahead and route through here, pick it up, and make our way up.
Azure taking one shot in the chest from the laser bridge on his laser bridge skip. Still got 2 hearts. Can take a hit can take the required hit in here, but there is the ability to just do a spin that briefly pauses you while you're on this Samaria maze, and that little pause is enough to avoid taking the single heart of damage. But he still is in a pretty precarious situation. Does a nice job of getting the iframes from the pegs there. Should be able to complete this dungeon from here. Meanwhile, Dao expertly navigating the basement of Ganon's Tower. Going to be seeing the first of the refights in Ganon's Tower. You have to refight all of the Light World bosses, but with a twist. For the first one, the refight of the Armos Knights, we have Armos Knights on ice.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a way to just make this fight a little bit harder, because normally not in any of our runs, but in casual run, you're gonna have silvers here, and can make very quick work of those Armos Knights. And of course, we don't have silvers, but it does make it a little bit harder.
Right.
And gonna grab some extra arrows, because we want to have arrows for, even though we're gonna be doing silverless Ganon, having those extra arrows for just enemies, and of course for the mimics that we have to kill, definitely helps out.
Yeah. Gonna need at least 8 arrows through the these 2 mimic rooms, provided we don't go for mimic clips, which unless
really
you're
slow.
Extremely good, are not going to be faster than
for sure not.
arrow fights.
After that, we don't really care about the arrows so much, because, like I said, not doing silver, so don't need to preserve them for Ganon.
So we're joined in by a raid from ZeldaSpeedRuns 2. Hello, raiders! Just finishing up a exciting race of all dungeons restricted major glitches in Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Hope y'all stick around and watch this fun finish. Meanwhile, Dao making his way through the gauntlet. Yep.
These rooms, some of the, this just string of rooms. It gets a little harder each time as we add conveyor belts and spikes and ice.
Excellent snipe there from Dao with that last arrow of his.
Gonna switch to the fire rod. And I'm probably gonna use the fire rod on land moles 2 here. Does need to be cautious to make sure he still has enough magic to get these torches later on, but you know we have plenty. And gets
Mm-hmm.
the 1 round very
Yep.
nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
And has enough magic to do the torches room. Kind of funny, the lot of places in this game where the game kind of gives you what you need in the pots, but in the first torches room, there's a couple of small magics.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't come in with enough, gonna need to find that magic elsewhere, and it can be a big pain if that happens.
Right. If you're fast enough, a single small magic is good enough to do 4 lamp uses. So technically, the game gives you enough, but that's really pushing it from Nintendo standards. Usually, you'd see every single one of these pots have like a full magic refill, but not
Yep.
today.
But they give you one for the next room at least, so.
Yes. Here we're going to see Dao pick up the Helma key. There are actually 3 potential keys that we can pick up, or that we most often pick up in Ganon's Tower for all dungeons. Usually you only see people pick up 1 of 2, either that Helma key that Dao picked up, or the torch key that I believe that Azder picked up at the very beginning of the basement when you bonk off of the torch. Helma key is slightly faster, but you're going to take a little bit of damage. So it's, especially if you decide to not take the health refill from the old man, it's a much safer spot. Dao getting a little trolled by that bumper there.
Yeah, and you also notice he did not pick up the big magic refill in the room before we get into Moldorm, too, because, well, I mean, normally this is the only boss, this Agatu boss that we have right now. The only boss in the game that doesn't give us a refill when we're done, which is like, why game? You know, we're about to fight the final boss and you're not giving us a refill. But because this is all dungeons, this is not going to be the end. We cannot drop right down into Ganon after this. We actually have to go kill Aga 1. The most convenient time to do that is right before we do drop down, because we just mirror there.
Yep. It does make this movement pretty convenient. Though if a runner happens to forget to do Aga Tower and realizes during the fight, they basically just have to save and quit during the Ganon fight and have to walk their way back around. You might see Dao play it a little risky, but looks like he's just going to go around, not risking anything with the lead that he's got.
Yep. And Ganon's Tower, the Aga Tower, with all this nice equipment. We have a nice fire rod, we have a nice tempered sword, a much easier fight than in an NMG situation where you don't have those things.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Nice extra luxuries to do this fight now.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple different ways that you can do this Aga Tower segment. I believe most of our runners will be sticking with the fire rod throughout this entire section. Though some of our runners opt to switch to the hookshot or the boomerang at some point along the way.
Yeah, one of the nice things if you were to use the hookshot is you can use that hookshot for iframes to help yourself get through the Ganon fight. But that would take an extra menu at this point, so I suspect Down. I know Azure. In fact, I even asked him about it. They're gonna stay on that fire rod.
Speaking of Azder, having a little bit of difficulty in this Gauntlet 3 room, decides to run up and pick up that extra heart because any hit from one of these Zazaks would have finished him off. Nice snipe of the Stalfos there, and we're through the Gauntlet, probably the last point where you're really scared for your life. Doesn't quite get the one cycle, but the early 2 cycle, not that much difference in time between the two. And with all that, we are to probably the bane of this category, and really
It's all three
of any category, but this one in particular, just because of positioning, the Aghanim 1 fight, just absolute misery.
Yeah, in fact, we have the 3 most RNG heavy, the Aga 2 fight, although that one's not nearly as bad, because even though you can still get blue balls from the main Aga, you're always going to get the regular reflectable balls from the other 2. Whereas here, it's just a big coin flip most of the time. And yeah, so you got that, and then of course Ganon warps being a thing, as we're going to see once Dao is done with this fight. So you have all the RNG heavy portions of the run, all right back to back, and yeah, it's just you're at the end of the run. It's not a point where you're going to want to reset, so you gotta just wait it out and hope for the best.
Yeah, a lot of people describe it as, hey, you sort of play your best up to that point, and then the game decides whether you'll PB or not.
Yeah, I could buy that.
Dao, I believe, sitting on 2 blue balls there. The way the fight works, if you don't know, there are 4 shots per lightning phase. The first shot is always reflectable. The second, third, and fourth is a coin flip between a blue ball, which just does nothing, and a reflectable shot. Dao just deciding to Jedi right between those.
Why
that
not?
lightning shot. Yeah, well, I guess why not? You're getting a full health refill anyways. And after the 4 shots, there is a lightning phase. Each time that you get a blue ball, it's 6 seconds of time loss. After 3, 7, 11, and 15 blue balls, you get an extra lightning phase.
I have not been counting,
another
but
6.
This has not been good.
Yeah, I'm feeling like we're... Did he just dodge it again? Good lord. Yeah,
I feel
like
I've seen like 3 lightning phases here, so that's
yeah, I believe we were at 7 exactly for Dao. So yeah, that's.
And then we have to listen to Zelda talk to us, or is it Zelda that talks to us here?
This is Sahasrara, I believe, talking to us
from the other side. We have to listen to this, and yeah.
Yeah. Completely irrelevant to this category, but one thing that I found out one time was they actually did program some text if you happen to make it to this point in the regular game and not get the Moon Pearl. He does say, "Hey, go back to Tower of Hera."
That's pretty funny. Yeah, like you said, completely irrelevant because we rescued Zelda and then she got put right back into that crystal. So
In the meantime, Dao working on Ganon as a casual or a newer runner of this game. One of the harder fights, but both of these runners have tons of experience with the Ganon fight, so you should be seeing them slice up this blue pig pretty darn quickly. There you saw a couple of the Ganon warps, just coin flips, and then you just have to deal with until he decides to stop, at which point you hit him. You gotta do it 3 times in this 3rd phase. And then we're on to phase 4. Ooh, you got another blue pig.
That's never good. Not wanting to get that to happen. But he does get the torch glitch anyway. Didn't get that early shot in, but torch glitch being very important in this situation. It is possible to do this without the torch glitch, but it just makes your life that much more miserable. It's very difficult to get 3 shots per torch lighting. In fact, I don't think you can do it at all. You have to actually hope to get 2.
But in the meantime, we are seeing Dao using a little vulnerability as Ganon is warping around. There's a small window where you can actually hit him. Normally the game hoping that you'd have the silver arrows, but no need. With that, in just a few moments, we're going to have Dao cross this bridge and be the winner of this race.
Yep. Finishing up with an official SRL time of 1:13:34. So GG's to Dow. Very nice run. And we're going to watch Azder finish his run out. He's about to have his Aga fight. Hopefully he has fewer blue balls in this fight than Dow did.
Should be seeing if we can get Dow coming in for a winner's interview. And then when Azder is finished,
already a bad
well.
start because we just saw 2 straight blue balls on Azder's side. Ouch.
Some complaints coming in from Azder in the chat, so I imagine we had a 3rd blue ball.
Oh my god.
So far, I believe we are 4 for 4.
I say, I think
5 for 5.
Oh my god. Yeah, WTF is exactly right.
6 for 6.
Oh my god.
Could we see it? I'm gonna. We don't have Helpasaur in chat, but we.
I've only heard
the
of
famed
the 15. It's by the same runner.
The famed Steven IRL partner Twitch streamer happened to have gotten 15 blue balls twice on stream. We saw a non-blue ball, so as they're not going to meet the same fate.
But we might get 14.
I don't believe. I think you can only get 14 if you made it to the last section.
Okay, good point. Do a little bit of math there. That doesn't work. So.
Yeah, so I think we're topping at 11 here as possible. Double digits would already be pretty darn okay. I think that stopped at 9. I kind of lost count at some point.
Definitely lost
think
count.
That was 9.
Between the two of them, that was a lot of blue balls.
Blue
between
balls.
The 2 runners.
Speaking of one of the 2 runners, we do have Dow joining us in the commentary booth. Congratulations on your victory, Dow.
Yeah, GG, Dow.
Thank you.
We just saw Azder have to deal with the blue ball nonsense. I know the blue balls at the end of the run is one of your favorite parts of the All Dungeons category.
No, I absolutely hate it so much. I much prefer regular runs where it's like 29, 30 minutes in. It's like, okay, either this is a low stress run or a high stress run. And you just kind of deal with it. I hate it in this. It's just like you have a run and then you just pray that it is an okay time.
Yep. Pray to the gods, the Zelda gods, that you get to PB. Had a pretty decent run for you. Ended up with a 113, minute and a half off of your PB. Though you did go with a hot escape. Is that? Do you have a 140 or a 549 in MG, or is this a? Huh?
I have like a 549.07 or something.
Okay. Okay. So this isn't a real escape PB. It's just a PB for all dungeons.
Yeah.
So how do you feel overall about your run? There were some hiccups along the way, but nothing major.
I felt like I played okay. I had some really bad RMG.
Yeah, the desert segment with the dead rocks. just wouldn't get out of your way.
Yeah, I didn't check how much time I lost there, but it was probably just like 20 plus seconds just on dead rocks. So it's like, I don't know what you do about that.
Yeah, it should be the note for the future. If the dead rock blocks the left side of there, you can spin and speed clip off the right, and then I believe if you just continue you'll fall into the water. But if you continue to hold right, I think you'll jump out and land on land.
Is it the far right edge, or like
no, just
to
on
the
the
right
other
and then that's the
side,
left
just on that
corner?
other side of the slope.
Oh, just the right corner on the slope there?
Yeah.
I have to take a look at it.
In the meantime, we are seeing a finished run from Azder coming in with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 30 seconds. Also seeing if Azder can join us in the commentary booth to discuss their run. Both you and Azder had some issues with the the very first boss, the Armos Knights fight. I was a little worried about you because you got all the way down to half a heart.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That was that was pretty scary.
That wasn't even the worst thing I did in Escape, so or Eastern. I had the upwards teleport. It was like almost a
oh yes,
yeah,
that's right. Trying to do trying to do the citrus clip. I believe you ended up you had a much better escape, and so I believe you still ended up entering Eastern before Azder. But yeah, I remember you had been telling me that you had gotten a lot of upwards teleports in Citrus, and so seeing you hit it again in this run was not something you'd like to see.
And also welcome in Azder. GG's.
GG's, Azder.
Yo.
So what do you first that Haga fight? So both of you, I know you don't typically only watch the chat and don't watch the actual restream. But both of you had a lot of blue balls, but I think you topped out a little bit higher than
I had
Dow.
9.
Yeah,
I only had 7.
Yeah, y'all both had ridiculous numbers. You were on the I think it was the 6 for 6.
Yeah, it was 6 for 6.
Oh my god.
And you were expressing your displeasure in chat as it was happening. We were contemplating if we were going to see the Steven IRL 15 in a row, but luckily we didn't go that far.
I was wondering if I was going to see that. Like, honestly, you start to wonder after you see that many in a row.
Yeah.
How do you? Yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
I would say overall, I say a really good run. A couple of unfortunate deaths, but other than that, I think you did really well. You got the mirror clip into ice. I know you've been working really hard on getting that, so congratulations to that one.
Yeah, like
your helmet death was it was insane. Just
that was like helmet is like I told myself that if I'm in that kind of danger, then I am like in tournament, no matter what, I'm just gonna stop the user. And I didn't get the chance to do that. I literally
Right. Yeah, he because I guess based on the timing, he kind of stopped his when he broke open his helmet, he stopped his walk halfway up, and so then when he did his walk all the way down, he was all the way at the very bottom. He shot off the fireballs, and then smacked you like the tail was nowhere near you, and you somehow got hit, and then the right ball exploded off screen, so you couldn't even see that it was coming, and just nailed you on the way up. I'm
not sure there's much you could do about that one.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate.
I walked into his front paw, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the tail, but yeah, maybe you did walk into his front paw.
Was it a fireball, or did he throw a fireball right then too?
Yeah, he threw a fireball right then, and it exploded off screen, so you couldn't have even anticipated where it was going to come from.
Yeah, the one that killed me, I think. I wasn't expecting that one at all.
It's just so obnoxious when that happens, because like half the screen's a hitbox, and you're just like, where can I possibly stand to not get owned right now?
So most of the glitches that I had been like super worried about and practicing a lot, most of those went pretty well.
Yeah, I feel like both of y'all on the actual glitch sections of the run did very, very well. Yeah. I can't quite think of outside of your upward teleport on Citrus, I can't really think of anything that y'all particularly screwed up.
I kind of messed up Hera Swamp, but that's it.
Yeah, but you got in there okay, so worked out fine. But yeah.
Yeah, with that victory, Dow, I believe you're done with all of your matches in the group. 3 wins, so you've already made it along. Azder, I know you got a default win because one of the runners in your group ended up dropping, but you do have one more race with SNES Chalmers to see who makes it on to the bracket stage.
Yeah, how you feeling about that one?
I'm feeling fine about that one, but I need to put up some better times for my next 2 times, because this was like awful, and like I kind of stopped feeling bad about this run because it just seemed like it clearly wasn't meant to be, like after that blue ball I get at the end.
Yeah, I mean, at least it didn't come down to a difference between 7 and 9. But yeah, I just, that's a rough way to end it.
Yeah, I did feel like I had a shot at taking this one, but
yeah. I don't think I have anything else I want to ask. Tracy, if you have any other questions you want to give to our runners?
Nope, that's pretty much all I've got.
So I think we're gonna hand it off to Nori. It actually, runners, if you have anything that y'all want to say before we hand it off to Nori to close us out.
Just appreciate the restream and the commentary, as always.
yeah, for sure. One kind of interesting thing about the runner that dropped, I was actually in his group in the randomizer, the overall glitches randomizer tournament last year, and I ended up having to drop from that because of IRL stuff. So we've been in the same group twice, and we still haven't raced at all. It's kind of funny.
Like magnets bouncing off of each other.
Yeah, well, then also you end up in the same group as the other major player in the low percent category, so that certainly makes things interesting here.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, you had a world record low as your file name. I don't know if I understand HD let from Dow's side.
It's just supposed to be harder to believe.
Ah, gotcha. Anyways, with that, go ahead and hand it off to Nori.
Okay. GG's to both Dow and Azder. Thanks for it. I know there was kind of some back and forth, but it always you never know like how things are gonna go, which makes this a really fun category to watch. Also, big thanks to M. Kozler and Tracy M for doing commentary, much appreciated. So, and also a pleasure working with both of you again. And thanks everyone for joining us. There are more matches coming up tomorrow and pretty much the rest of the week. So we're hoping to bring you more content for this tournament very soon. So thanks everyone for joining us. And again, we hope to see you soon. Bye.